We all know the silhouette of New York City, skyscrapers piercing the clouds, canyons of steel and glass, the hum of a million lives moving at impossible speed. But what if we told you that before all this, there was a small, muddy town of Dutch merchants and wooden windmills? This is that city. Only it wasn't called New York yet. Welcome to New Amsterdam in 1660, a frontier town at the southern tip of Manhattan, built by Dutch merchants, African laborers, soldiers, sailors, and exiles from half of Europe, all clinging to a narrow strip of land between the Hudson and the East River. At the heart of the settlement rises Fort Amsterdam, squatting above the river on a low bluff. Its earthen ramparts and wooden palisades are patched and weather-stained, cannons poking out like blunt teeth toward the harbor. Inside, cramped barracks press against the governor's house and the powder magazine, every inch of space used. This is the nervous brain of the colony, where ledgers and letters from Amsterdam clash with rumors of English war and native alliances. The flag of the Dutch Republic snaps in the river wind, bright against the gray sky, a small piece of Europe flown very far from home. Below the fort stretches the main street of the town, a muddy spine lined with timber houses and low shops. Here, Dutch gables lean over crooked lanes, their roofs shingled in wood, their upper stories jutting out above the street. Signs creak on iron brackets: a beaver, a barrel, a ship, a Bible. In the gutters, refuse and sawdust mix with rainwater, while pigs nose for scraps. Carters shout in Dutch, French, and broken English. Women in coarse linen skirts barter for salt, cloth, and candles. The air is streaked with the smoke of peat and pine, the sharp smell of fresh tanned leather, the sour odor of fish unloaded at dawn. Follow the slope down to the water's edge, and the town changes into a forest of masts. The harbor is crowded with Dutch fluits and small coastal sloops, their hulls dark with tar, their sails patched from long Atlantic crossings. Barges loaded with timber, beaver pelts, wheat, and tobacco nudge against the wharf, while casks of beer, brandy, and gunpowder roll ashore. Sailors in rough wool and canvas haul lines and shout to one another over the creak of rigging and the splash of oars. Somewhere, a mate curses in Dutch as a crate breaks open, scattering iron tools into the mud. Above it all rides the constant rhythm of waves slapping the pilings, an ocean heartbeat that never quite lets the town forget how small and temporary it is. Behind the busy quay stand long, low warehouses with heavy doors and narrow windows, their interiors cool and dark. Inside, the wealth of the colony lies piled on rough plank floors: stacks of beaver pelts, fox and otter skins, bundles of dried herbs, barrels of grain and tar. Clerks with ink-stained fingers bend over ledgers, scratching neat columns of numbers by candlelight, turning furs and timber into guilders and debts. Outside, native traders in deerskin cloaks wait patiently with new bundles of pelts, their faces impassive as they watch this strange, noisy marketplace grow around them. Walk inland from the docks, and the power of the town begins to look less like cannons and more like paper. Near the center stands the Stadthouse, the town hall, a solid brick building adapted from an old tavern. Its meeting room smells of ink, damp wool, and old smoke. Here, magistrates in dark cloaks argue over property lines, unpaid loans, and drunken brawls. Proclamations in careful Dutch script are nailed to the door. Rules about trade, Sabbath observance, and the treatment of enslaved people. Law in New Amsterdam is a fragile fence thrown up against the wildness of the frontier and against the chaos within the town itself. Close by rises the simple wooden church of the Reformed faith. On Sundays, the streets empty as people file toward its doors: merchants in black hats and stiff collars, soldiers in faded uniforms, women in white caps and heavy skirts, African men and women in coarse linen, some enslaved, some free. Inside there is little decoration, only whitewashed walls, a high pulpit, and heavy wooden benches. The sermon is long and severe, thundering about sin, providence, and the storms that God has already sent across the ocean. Outside the church walls, however, life is rarely so sober. Step eastward inland, and the town loosens its collar. Taverns cluster along the lanes near the waterfront, their signs painted with tankards and ships. Through their open doors drift the clatter of dice, the scrape of fiddles, and the roar of voices arguing in Dutch, English, French, and German. Sailors slam down mugs of beer and stronger things, while trappers from the interior lean back against the walls, their faces tanned and weathered, smelling of smoke and animal fat. Deals are struck here with a slap of the palm, furs for guns, land for beads, promises for more than they are worth. Outside, in the dirt lanes, chickens scatter as a drunk stumbles out into the night, laughing at nothing in particular. Beyond the main streets, New Amsterdam thins quickly into gardens, orchards, and rough pasture. Small farmsteads stretch up the island, their fields hacked out of the forest, a patchwork of cabbages, rye, and maize, fenced with rough rails. Windmills turn slowly in the river wind on higher ground, their long arms creaking as they grind grain for the settlement. Between the farms run narrow paths and cart tracks, threading through stumps and stones. In the distance, you can see the low palisade wall built along the northern edge of town, meant to keep out not only native raids, but also whatever threats might one day come from rival European empires. One day, the street along that wall will be called Wall Street. For now, it is simply the muddy edge of a very small world. Among the people who move along these streets, not all walk by choice. Enslaved Africans labor in fields, warehouses, and households, cutting timber, hauling stones, building the very walls that hem them in. Others are free, having bought or been granted their freedom after years of service, yet still walking a narrow line between acceptance and suspicion. Their presence is carved into the fabric of the town, though few of their names will survive in the neat columns of the ledgers. Children of many tongues, Dutch, English, French, African languages, and Lenape, chase one another through the lanes, growing up in a place that belongs fully to none of them yet, but will one day shape the fate of millions. The colony is a tangle of loyalties and resentments, a place where borders are drawn and redrawn not only on maps but in daily life. As dusk falls, New Amsterdam gathers itself in a small pool of light against the enormous dark of the continent. Lanterns flare to life along the main street and by the fort gate, their glow catching on wet cobblestones and puddles in the ruts. In the distance, the forest becomes a single black wall. Somewhere beyond it, smoke from unseen fires rises into the evening sky. The harbor quiets, but the masts still draw thin lines against the last gray of daylight, and the tide continues its slow, relentless work along the shore. From the church tower, a bell tolls the hour, and for a brief moment, the whole settlement seems to hold its breath. New Amsterdam in 1660 is small, rough, and precarious, a town of wooden walls and paper claims, of worn tools and ambitious dreams. It is a meeting point of rivers and peoples, of beaver pelts and account books, of prayer and profit, all perched on a narrow island that barely appears on most maps. No one walking its muddy streets can imagine the skyscrapers that will one day rise here, or the name this place will carry across the world. Yet in every wharf beam, every palisade post, every shouted bargain and whispered fear, the outlines of that future city are already being drawn. I hope you enjoyed our walk through New Amsterdam in 1660. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe for future journeys into the past.